Hey guys, Marisa Stone here with the Systems Lounge and Simon Says Social. And today we are going to dive into the sales funnel versus the customer journey. And I really want you guys to understand the difference between the two so that we can make sure that as you're designing your next series of funnels in 2018, you are making sure that you are creating a customer journey and not this traditional sales funnel that is really, truly outdated. So let me share my screen and we are going to begin. Here we go. So before I start talking all this stuff, I really want to iterate that you've got this. I can help. And I want you to let that sink in, because there are going to be times when we're talking about different things and you're going to go, man, there's no way I'll ever be able to create this. Yes, you can. You've got this and I can help. The way that we begin to design a customer journey is with the customer in mind. 90% of the customer journey is self-directed. So when somebody decides that they want to check out your product or service, it is no longer the case that if you are the angry car salesman screaming at them from the television, that they're just going to come on down and buy a new car, right? 90% is self-directed, and they choose what touch points they're going to come into contact with and how they are going to interact with your company. So some of the things that you need to understand in order to create this customer journey that influences them when they are ready to buy is to understand what their pain points are. What are they struggling with? As you can imagine, the pain points of a mother of two, right, will be very different than the pain points of a young man climbing the corporate ladder. And so you need to understand who your customer is and understand what their pain points are. And more importantly, how you can solve them. These solutions become those touch points and those scaffolding points that when your customer is going through the customer journey that you've created for them, that when they plummet, you're there to pick them back up and help them out so that they can continue to be successful in their endeavors. How can you support them, and how can you make sure that at the level that they can DIY it? Because that's what they're interested in. They're interested in being able to learn about your product or service, figure out how this fits into their lives, and then determine, okay, do I need this or not, right? Now, there's a certain percentage of the population that's going to say, I don't care, I don't want to do it, I want you to do it for me. And that's perfectly fine too. But even that group of people have pain points that they're struggling with, that as they go through the process of sitting back and watching you do it, they're still going to have some difficult moments. So by understanding what these pain points are and how you can solve them, you really position yourself in such a way that you are able to influence them at that point of purchase. And that's the important part. So the first thing we need to know is who the target audience is and what do they need. So again, we use the analogy that, the mom of two is going to be very different than the young man climbing the corporate ladder. And how do I determine who my clients and customers are? Well, I can use surveys. I can interview people. I can go to networking events or do networking events online. I can take a look at my data. Who's coming to my website? Who's checking out my Facebook page? Who's engaging with my various posts? And then overall research. If I've got this product or service, what type of person is going to want this product or service? And by utilizing all of these different ways to learn about your target market, you're going to be able to create a persona. And we're going to talk a little bit about that persona in just a few minutes. But as you're doing all of this research, right, you're going to be asking yourselves, what resources do I have? And how will they solve my customer or my client's problems? Once again, using the analogy of the mother of two versus the young man climbing the corporate ladder. The resources that you create for the mom of two are going to be drastically different than the resources that perhaps you create for the young man climbing the corporate ladder. And so by understanding first who your target audience is, you're going to be able to look at your arsenal or your collection of resources, and you're going to be able to say, okay, during my customer journey, as they are going through the process of learning about my company, these are the items that they're going to need. These are the podcasts, these are the emails, these are the ebooks, these are the things that they're going to need, all the resources that they're going to need, and that they will solve the problem that they are struggling with at that moment, and my client will continue through my customer journey. The next thing you're going to do is decide on what your customer journey map is going to look like. Do you have a spiral customer journey? Do you have a sine wave? Do you have a jagged journey? What does yours look like, right? And then you're going to inventory all these resources and describe all the touch points. Now, in this step, more is actually better, because although you may not use them all, you want them all in one place when you're designing the customer journey. It's super important. Just like you would pull all your paints together if you're painting a picture, or you would get all your supplies together if you were creating a sculpture, right now you're creating a customer journey. And so you want all of the pieces of the puzzle in place to be able to go in here and really design it and really play around with it. You're going to then design that customer journey model, and you're going to add those touch points along the model. Now, keep in mind, this map is just for you. It's for you to be able to design the ways in which clients and prospects will go through your company. So you want to add those touch points and ways in which you will scaffold or support your clients into your model. So okay, after they visit, after they attend my webinar, the third email needs to have this in it, right? Whatever the case may be, you're mapping this out right now. And then once you get it all created, you're going to implement the entire customer journey, and then you're going to stop and listen. And you're going to pay attention to what's going on with your audience, and they will tell you where they need more support. They'll tell you if something is not working. They'll tell you if a piece or a step is useless. They'll tell you all these things if you pay attention. And you may not even have to ask. They may simply be sharing knowledge and information in the online space, and you'll hear what they say because you're going to set up a process of listening. So your resources and your touch points, what do those need to contain? Most of you will actually find that you actually have a lot more resources than you originally thought. Every single time you create a piece of content, that is from creating a video to answering an email to doing a Q&A or a Facebook Live to creating a post, all of those pieces are content that you can use inside the customer journey to help support and scaffold people. So as you're designing this customer journey, think through, well, what do I already have and what content might be missing? And can I replace that missing content with something that belongs to somebody else? Now, my clients always look at me funny when I say this, but part of the goal that you have in your mind is to become a thought leader, right? And to become that go-to person that people turn to when they need help, which means the resources that you share don't always have to be yours. If you have a colleague that you're working with, or you know somebody who's created something, or you've followed somebody who's created something that worked really well for you, don't hesitate to share that thing with your audience, that product, that service, that program, because this really creates this rapport and this authenticity between you and your client, so that they understand that it's not the you show, it's really you're trying to help support them with resources. So there are lots of different ways in which you can share somebody else's content to help support and augment your clients as they go through the process. You also need to decide what content is going to be free versus what content is going to be paid. Your goal, of course, is to increase your bottom line. So everything you create should not be free. Now, you can start at, low-hanging fruit price points, certainly, but you need to make sure that as you're going through this process, you're also maintaining your own bottom line and ideally up-leveling your company. So don't forget to add some paid options in there. Then you need to think through and figure out, okay, I've got all this together. I figured out exactly how they're going to, how my content is going to support them. What might be my first touch point? Now, when I say first touch point, I don't mean just one, right? Because you don't get to control. 90% of the customer journey is run by the customer. So you don't get to control where they come in. So what might be a first touch point that they would come in contact with? Might it be a video on YouTube? Might it be a Facebook Live or a Facebook ad? Might it be a blog post that you've created, right? Figure out what those first touch points are going to be, and then how you can pull people into the customer journey so that you guys can have a conversation, you can build rapport, they can trust you, you build the know, like, and trust factor in that client, and then eventually they purchase from you and become a brand advocate. So you want to recognize what those first touch points are going to be. And then after that first touch point, how will they continue to learn about you? So if it is a video, are you providing links that the customer can then click on to find out more? If it is a blog post, are you inviting them to come back and check out your website? If it is an ebook that they've downloaded, have you provided a resources page in the back that they can utilize to perhaps join your Facebook group or follow you on social media or connect with you in some other way, join your newsletter, whatever. So what are some of those ways in which the customer can continue to learn about you? Because here's the thing, people are busy and they are not going to stop to go and do these things unless you invite them to do these things. And then what throughout the process of this customer journey will trigger them to purchase a product or a service from you? And by the time you've mapped all this out, you're actually going to see along the line what those triggers are going to be. And it's going to be so much more comfortable to be able to look at this and go, wow, okay, now I have control. So think about it like this. Remember when I explained to you that the original traditional funnel was created by the insurance salesman back in 1898, and he came and he knocked on our door and we invited him in and perhaps fixed him a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and we sat down for an hour and he talked with us about insurance, and we purchased a package. It is no longer the case that that's the way things happen. So by knowing this, I am also aware that there are a number of different touch points in my world, in my company, where people can come into contact with me. And so I want to make sure, and there's a lot of stuff out there that people say about you that you have no control over, but the things that you do have control over should be stellar, right? When you're providing a video, or when you're providing a webinar, or when you are, creating an ebook, or whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that you're showcasing the knowledge you have, and more importantly, how it's going to impact your client. And the difference between that traditional sales funnel and this brand new way of utilizing all these touch points to reach your audience and pull them through is very, very similar to, let's just use the analogy of dating, right? Just as the moment that somebody meets you, so for instance, you go to a networking event, you meet this person, you guys decide that you're going to go do lunch, right? So you meet up for lunch. At that lunch meeting, you're not going to be like, okay, buy my product, buy my service. No, you're going to take a step back and you're going to ask them about themselves, and they're going to ask you about yourself. And you're going to spend this lunch date really getting to know each other. Think through the ways in which your touch points can allow your client to do that, right? An introductory video on your YouTube channel, for instance, a biography listed on your Facebook page, an about me page on your website. All of these are ways in which you do lunch with your client in the virtual space. So then you guys decide, wow, lunch was pretty cool. I definitely want to continue this relationship. Why don't we get together and go do dinner, in a week or so? And you're like, great, let's do dinner. And so perhaps at that dinner meeting, you take it up a notch, and you know a little bit about them. You know the type of things that they are into. You know what some of their goals are that they shared at the lunch meeting. So now all of a sudden you might bring them a resource, right? So for the dinner meeting, you might bring a friend a book, or you might bring them an article that you found, or whatever the case may be, right? The same thing is going to happen in the virtual space. You're going to share content. Perhaps this is where they download an article or download an ebook, or they take your challenge, or they engage in your free webinar, or whatever the case may be. You're sharing something with them that they need at that moment, right? And this dating, so to speak, continues throughout the customer journey until that point of purchase. Well, the same thing happens in the virtual space. So by understanding all of those touch points from basically start to finish, you're able to create this template, right? This customer journey template that you can then use for everything inside your company from now on. So everything that you create, all the new products, all the new services, all the other items that you create inside your company now will be available to all of your people because you've created a template to start from. And now you can just copy paste that template, tweak a few things, add some different touch points, add some different content, and now you've got a new template that you are supporting that next set of clients or customers. So keep in mind the difference between the sales funnel, that traditional funnel with 4 steps, and the multitude of ways and touch points that people can use to access you today. So in the next video, let me stop sharing my screen. In the next video, we are going to talk about the 4 crucial components of a customer journey. And we are really going to dive deep into these, because if you don't have these 4 points, your customer journey is not going to work as well, and you are not going to be able to influence your customer at that point of purchase. So in the next video, which is going to arrive in your inbox in a day or 2, I want you to make sure that you're watching that and you go through those 4 crucial components and make sure that your customer journey contains them. So I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye, everyone.